Karen, thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. So we are going to talk about transitions today. Because you've made quite a few of them in your lifetime. You went from corporate America to real estate in New York, and from real estate in New York to real estate in Park City, Utah. So let's take this in pieces. Tell me, why you shifted from corporate America to real estate and what motivated it, that whole transition.
Sure. I'll try to tell it as fast as I can. So I graduated with a degree in marketing. I always wanted to get a job in marketing. I ended up with a job doing licensing for consumer products at Nickelodeon in Times Square, always with the aspiration to be doing marketing. But nobody ever wanted to leave those roles. So it was a very hard position to get. And so unfortunately or fortunately, in 2007, they were doing rounds of layoffs, and I had already worked for Disney, and now I was working for Nickelodeon. And, once you're in licensing and especially like consumer products, it's hard to go to a different brand. Like I had worked for number one and number two. So like, where do you go from there? So it was actually my parents who suggested that I go take some classes, and they said, how about real estate? And I thought nothing of it. I was like, okay, fine. Like I had been laid off. I was collecting severance. I was temping, and I needed something else to do. So I took the classes, got my license. And right when I told my old manager from Nickelodeon that I was getting into real estate, she said, oh, like, that's so obvious. And I'm like, obvious? Like, obvious to who? And she said, well, you like doing marketing, and now you can control the purse strings, and you like actually dealing with people. So now you'll be dealing with people, because my favorite part of corporate was dealing with the different licensees. I was very good at building relationships with them. So I cannot say that it had that they were a direct, like, one directly led to the other, but the transferable skills and the skills that I wanted to use made sense in real estate.
And people clearly saw that in you.
Yeah, I did not, but people did. I was like maybe 23. Like, so I had no idea. I didn't know what being in real estate was about, right? I'm like, all right, I just show apartments, right?
Which
But
is one of the best things about being 23, right?
right, exactly.
And
Exactly.
I think it's amazing that people saw that in you as well, and sort of, opened the idea for you. So you make this transition, you take these classes, you decide to become a real estate agent. You don't really know what you're getting into. You're in Manhattan, you're in New York.
Yep.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in those early real estate days, and how did you overcome them?
Well, first of all, it was March of 2008 when I got my license. So I had impeccable timing for what would eventually be a big crash. But what I had was, at the time, was a big enough why. And my why was literally, I don't want to move home, which is to California. So I did anything I could to just make the money that I could to survive living in New York. And I didn't see any other option, right? I had temped a lot, and I had already kind of been in corporate America. I did not want to go to grad school at the time. And so I didn't see any other option but to just get through it. And what were the challenges? Well, I didn't really know anybody who had money, right? I had come from Nickelodeon, and I had no connection with anybody in New York. So I had to start from scratch. I started advertising on Craigslist, and eventually I started to build a small business. Of all people, this was a limiting belief, only people who I thought that I could relate to. So if they had a high power job, I was like, nope, not touching you. But if they were like fresh out of college or had a low budget, I'm like, you're my people.
Yeah.
And so I did 35 rentals, which is normal for New York City. Like, most people rent in my first 9 months, which is actually a
Wow.
lot of transactions.
Yeah. For rentals,
And
especially,
yeah,
those are
yeah.
tough.
Yeah, all under $3,000 a month, which again, it's all relative, but for New York, that's the lower end.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So you had this why, which was you weren't going to go back home.
Yep.
It was the crash.
Mhm.
And so you just hustled. So how did and you had these limiting beliefs, right? So like, give me some details. Like, what were some of the things that you did to hustle and get those 35 rentals?
Well, at the time there was no Zillow, there was no Street Easy. And so there was Craigslist. So I got up every day and I posted an ad every day. Because we had to do it in real time. I connected with other realtors, even from other companies who had rentals, and I asked them if I could advertise it. I asked them if I could do open houses. I had been offered the chance to join somebody's team. I was the only person on the team, and we had very parallel businesses, but I did have a mentor in her. And actually, she suggested that I check out BNI because I wanted to meet people and I needed to network. So actually, a manager had come downstairs one day and he's like, hey, and he asked her, hey, would you be interested? There's a seat available in a BNI chapter. And she had already done it. She's like, no. And I'm like, what about me? So I went and I learned, and I actually stayed in that chapter for 7 years, switched chapters, and became the president of the next chapter I was in that group for 3 years. So I was
Oh
in
my
BNI
God.
for a very long time. So I was constantly networking and trying to figure out how I could meet the end user or the
That's
connectors.
yeah, so that's amazing. So Craigslist, you had a mentor who sort of showed you some of the way, and
Yeah.
then you totally took advantage of that and built your network.
Yeah.
Um, how did you get over those limiting beliefs?
Oh, it was really hard because I kept getting them even in BNI. I kept getting them, being told, you're not there yet. You're still so young, and eventually I just realized like I'm I'm doing the things. You might not believe that I can do them, but I am doing them. And I had the awareness that they were suppressing me, right? It was about them and they were uncomfortable. For me, I was just like, well, maybe they're right, but I'm going to go and try proving them wrong. But it certainly wasn't easy because I was young. I couldn't get over the age thing, and I still had to meet people and build and get that level of trust. And I had to do that regardless of my age.
Yeah, that's awesome. How long did that process take for you, would you say?
Um, that I mean, they tried to suppress that for a few years, but eventually, I think in 2010 or so, I was actually offered the chance to become the president of my Indiana University Alumni Association. So that immediately put me in a role where like I was the leader of 14,000 alums in the Metro New York area. And people listened to me, I was leading them. And so I think it was just more leadership opportunities that gave me the confidence to be like, you know what? I'm done with this group. And then as soon as the other group saw that I had that experience as a leader, they're like, you get to be the president. Like, we're not going to suppress you. You get to lead us.
That's awesome. That is amazing. So you just didn't give up. You continued to try. And then I love the idea of the awareness, because I think that that's a huge part of any limiting belief. Is just, it's half the battle, is being aware that, yes, I can easily believe what they're telling me, but something's telling me you're listening to your gut and your heart, and you're, acknowledging something about that just doesn't feel right. That's
Right.
amazing. So you become a successful realtor in New York. You're no longer just doing rentals.
Right. Yeah.
You became the president of your alumni association. You became the president of the new BNI chapter. Now you're experienced. Now you're more confident. What are some of the strategies that continue to help you be successful?
Um, I got a coach. I enrolled in real estate coaching. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, but with Tom Ferry.
Yeah.
And it was there that I realized the power of, masterminding. So being around other like-minded people. I was being educated in a way that I wasn't, whether it was, being exposed to Inman or to Tom Ferry or to many of the other organizations. I was being educated about the real estate industry. So I wasn't just in my small bubble like a lot
Yeah.
of my colleagues were. And also, building a team out, right? Hiring people when nobody else in my office really was. I was the one with the assistant, right? I had the marketing assistant. I saw the value of having the support, and that's what helped me to get, I mean, a lot of people brag, but at one point I was the top agent in the office. And and I know that was all done on purpose, right? It was all done just through my actions, through the hiring, through
Oh
the
my.
coaching.
So brag away, first of all.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to talk a little bit about building out the team,
Mhm.
because I think that's one of the most scary things for agents is taking that leap to hire an assistant. Like that's the first step, right? Hiring an assistant.
Yeah.
And it's scary because holy cow, now I'm like, paying somebody. And so what if that means I really have to produce and I have to make sure that I can afford this person?
Yep.
And the other piece of it is, holy cow, I'm letting go of some control.
Yep.
So, I mean, how does an agent, how would you advise an agent who knows that in order to level up to the next phase of their growth, they need to hire an assistant? Like, how do you get over that hump so that they actually do it and take the action?
The way that I was trained was basically to take a piece of paper and write down everything that you do in the day, everything that you do for your business, and then to highlight all the things that only you can do, that only you can do. And if you look at the rest of the list, you start to realize these are things that I can outsource. A great manager of mine once said, focus on your strengths, outsource your weaknesses. And
Yes.
for me, that thing wasn't always a weakness. It might have been a time suck, right? Like me
Yes.
designing my own marketing piece. I have a background in marketing. I
Yeah.
know how to do this, but is that my highest and best use of time? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
But we as business owners have to have the confidence in our ability, in our leadership ability, and in our ability to trust that the person that we are hiring will do the job. How do we build that confidence? By recording for them, like by building out an SOP, by recording, here's how I do this. Just do it.
Yeah.
I'm teaching you how to do it, right? Like that builds confidence. And also, motivating them to kind of stick with you by maybe allowing them to go gain skills like learning more about social media, learning more about video editing, maybe you paying for them to get coached in some way, which they can then take with them to the next person. But in the meantime, I've been able to take advantage of it now.
Yeah.
Right.
No, those are great things. I always tell my clients to focus on your strengths. There's this, I think, default sort of, oh, I have these weaknesses, so I have to make them better. I have to strengthen them. And I just don't believe that at all. I believe set the weaknesses aside, to your point, outsource them, whether they're weaknesses or things that you just don't like to do,
Right. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And focus on the strengths, and making those strengths even better,
Yep.
better. Because imagine, like, if you're really good at one thing and you focus on getting even better at that great thing, like then you become the best of the best.
Right.
So I think that's so important. The other thing that I just thought of when you were talking about training this person is, I think you also have to sort of let go of and accept that this is another human, and humans make mistakes and they're not always perfect. And they're different from you. So they're not always going to do things exactly the way that you would do them. And you have to be okay with that if it's
Yeah.
going to work.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
You can train them so much, right? Only so far. But one thing that I've learned about leadership and having people in these support roles is like, it's not always about me. It's about them. It's about how do
Yes.
they want to be talked to? What are they in this for? And the more you can lean into what their needs are and what their goals are and what the experiences that they want to get are, then the more that person is likely to really truly mesh with you and to stay with you,
Yeah.
right? Instead of being like the dictator.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So now you've built out this team. You were the number one agent in your office. You're like settled in New York. Like you have your people, like you're involved in your community.
Mhm.
And like that, and then you decide to move to Utah. I mean, what?
Yeah, what is right? COVID made me do it. Yeah,
COVID made us, all of us, do a lot of things we
do a
would never
lot of
do.
things. Yeah, yeah. Coincidentally, I was supposed to travel the world that year, in 2020. So I had already set aside funds. I had already given notice to my landlord. I had sold my apartment in 2018.
Wow.
So I was sitting on the cash waiting for the market to shift. Little did I ever imagine that I would be in Park City. But COVID happened and I did not have a target. I didn't even know if I was going to stay in the real estate business. And I mean, the journey to get here was quite fascinating. I met with 85 agents along the way, 23 different states. I know that it's only like 2,000 miles from New York to Park City, but I took 8,800 miles to get here.
8,800 miles and 85 agents.
Yes, yes. During COVID, when most people were not even around people, and I will say that I never got COVID. I tested myself, I got tested regularly.
Oh
This
my
is
God.
my first time having a car. I brought my car in every 2,500 miles. I was like, is it okay? Am I doing it right? And they're like, yes, you're supposed to drive it. I had no concept, right? And and as luck would have it, I ended up getting to Park City. And realistically, really what happened was agents would start to connect me with people as they saw my journey. They'd be like, go meet this one, go meet that one, go meet that one. And nobody had any connections in Park City for me. And I was offered the chance to stay in somebody's timeshare. And I was in Vail and they called me and they said, where are you going next? We have access to this timeshare. Where would you like to go? Where are you going? And I said, I don't know. I guess I opened up the map. I said, I don't know. I guess Park City comes next. And I drove to Park City. I had a whole week in a beautiful hotel overlooking Main Street, Park City. And I ended up getting my nails done. I didn't know anybody. I knew two people, one from New York and one realtor. And I met with both of them, one for breakfast, one for lunch. And in between, I went to get my nails done and I met some New Yorkers at the nail salon. And they
Of course, at the nail salon.
Yeah, they were like, you should just move here. And I was like, okay, like what's the worst that can happen? I knew what came next, which was, Nevada and then California. And I knew I didn't want to be in either of those states. So, and I was kind of tired of driving. So I thought, okay, like the New Yorkers are here, the Californians are here. I guess I'll try it.
Wow.
And that was it.
And what year was that 2020 at the end of 2020?
Yep, that was August of 2020. And my friend who's the realtor, we went out for ice cream and I texted her, I said, hey, by the way, like when we go out, can you show me some places? It was my second day here. I made an offer the next day.
Oh my God, Karen. Holy cow. You are a driver. Literally.
Literally, I was driving a lot.
Well, so then you had to get your license in Utah.
Yeah, which wasn't very hard. I mean, I'm educated as a broker in New York. I got my broker license in Florida because it was cold one winter in New York, so naturally. So the license wasn't the hard part. The hard part was selling an entirely different product from vertical living co-ops and condos and rentals to a second home resort market, houses with roofs and septic tanks. And I know nothing about any of this, right? So the learning curve was entitled, title people. Like the learning curve was huge. It was huge.
How did you do it? Like here we are, it's 2024, 4 years, you're successful, you're doing great there. Like you had a huge learning curve. Like how did you figure it out and how did you get to where you are?
I fought really hard to find mentors here in town. My management was not so willing to, I literally went into their office and I said, put me on a team, like throw me in, coach. Like I've got all this experience. I promise you I'm a value, but they didn't really understand, nor did they want teams. So I had some individual agents who finally started to see that, like, I'm the new kid, but I'm nice. I'm not that New Yorker with that attitude, and I have value to bring. So they started to, to include me in on some of the deals or let me work some of the open houses or shadow them. And I really did a majority of my learning, especially with the second home market, in different Facebook groups with agents who focus primarily on second home markets. Because,
Wow.
the audience, the buyer, the seller is not the same consumer as in New York, right? Is not the same as in any market where they're moving for work, right? Like this is
Yeah,
a want. This is not a need.
that's right. That's
You know,
right.
and I had to
Completely
learn that
different.
all.
Yeah. And it's just a different language, a different
Yeah.
way to speak. The culture is different. The
Yeah.
people are different. So in terms of marketing,
Mhm.
what adjustments did you make to your marketing?
So in New York, I really struggled with, like, who am I? I'm helping the renter, I'm helping the developer, the buyer, the seller, the relocation specialist, all of these people. If I was to pinpoint, like, what does my social media look like? I was all over the place. I was trying to be everything to everyone. In Park City, what I realized very early on with my networking background and my connector background and my marketing background, I realized that a majority of people here were coming from out of state. And I thankfully have a big network of agents all over the country.
Yeah.
So that was my superpower. But that's how I built my
Um,
business. My first year was just, hey, you know me from New York. You've seen my work ethic. Now I'm just pivoting. And now I'm in a new market and I want you, and your clients are coming skiing here. So you should start talking about their vacation with them. And now you have somebody in place. So that was one of them. And that was one of the reasons that I moved here. Was I saw that a lot of agents were not connected, nationally, let alone internationally. And the one that I was challenged with the most and still am is connecting with people who are already here, because the population is so small and the realtor pool is so big that everybody knows a realtor.
mhm.
And so it's taken me some time to figure out how to market to people and to stand out here, amongst all the other very, very successful and established agents here in town. And
So
I've kind of been able to do that randomly through Nextdoor.
through Nextdoor. Interesting. Tell me more about that.
So Utah is a non-disclosure state. And over the years, like many markets, we got our valuation from the county, which is directly connected to our taxes. And we have no rules here about how high they can raise the taxes in any given year. So I started to see people complaining about their valuation, like, oh my God, I can't believe the value went up that much. Like, it's not true. And I saw the need and I pinpointed, like, I just went in as a solo person, not as a business. I offered CMAs to anybody who wanted one, anybody. And for 6 weeks, give or take, I ran 330 comp reports. I sent them all to all these people all over town. I got them by the end of it. I asked them, I was finally able to ask for something. I asked them for Google reviews. Some of them, wrote me raving reviews. Some of them didn't even appeal. But now I'm doing that again. And there are people that are hopping on next door saying, Karen helped me save this much. Karen did this for me. So they're actually talking for me, and cheering for me. And in any given party that I go to and I mention my name, they're like, oh, you're the girl from next door.
Oh my goodness.
And it's all free and it's all profit, right? Because I didn't pay anything for it.
But that goes back to the awareness that you talked about in the beginning of our conversation, which is, you're constantly paying attention to what's happening around you, what your environment is. And when you saw an opportunity because of the valuations that were taking place and the conversations that were happening around that, and you said, boom, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
And a lot of other realtors were like, wow, you must be really busy right now, like with just running all the reports. Cause it was hard. I mean, I was at Inman, like running them in the back of the room. I mean, in any given day, I would have to 20 or 30 just to keep up with it.
Yeah. But you were seeding your business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So awesome. So awesome. So if I were an agent and I decided I wanted to pivot and either go to a new geography or maybe focus on a new niche, a new ideal client, what advice would you give me?
Well, I would tell you to do the thing that I struggled so hard to get, which was a mentor. Joining a team, learning, like crushing that confidence curve or shortening it so that you can get the experience, even if it means less money in your pocket. I mean, I'm confident that I would be further ahead today if I had been welcome to join a team, and to this day, like I am looking for a team to join because again, there are things that I like to do and there are weaknesses that I have, and I would rather focus on the strengths. So finding the people to join locally, and then something that truly helped me, maybe it was because it was COVID and there was a lot of movement going on, but I also joined a mastermind with other agents who were going through the same process. So, we all were new to our market. We all had to figure it out from scratch. And so we, it's really hard to keep your mindset like straight and positive when you're surrounded by people that are performing at levels that you might be accustomed to performing at, but now guess what? Ego check. You've got to now you're back at chapter 1, or as I like to say, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting from experience, but I still have to start. Right. And so having that mastermind, it doesn't have to last long. It could be, 6 months to a year. But just to say hey, what are you doing? What are you doing that's working? Oh, this next door thing, that's working. I'm not at a point where I can financially do the Zillow ads yet. So, so figuring out kind of, what kind of groups you can join, how you can get involved, how you could build, I had to build a personal life, my social life, my business life, and figure out real estate all at the same time. And that's not easy. And just give yourself some grace.
Grace. Grace is so, so important. That's super helpful. So what is the next reinvention of Karen?
Well, I'm currently going through the process of writing a TED Talk. So so I'm getting trained to do that, which is super intense.
Wow.
I know I figured why not just try for the biggest stages, right? So, so I'm doing it. I signed up for a program. I'm going through the process of, learning how to figure out what the right kind of message is for the audience, what I want them to take away, figuring out the stories, recollecting what is the up story? What's the down story? As I did stand-up comedy, or I do stand-up comedy. So I do take some creative liberty with writing my jokes. And so there's a very, very big challenge here of how much creative liberty can I have with writing my speech? Because you can write a great speech, but some of it, it has to be relatable.
Yes.
So my goal is to apply and to land a stage by hopefully the end of the summer. And then I don't know when the talk will be because there's plans, into the next year, but at least to secure a talk by the end of the summer.
Oh my God. Well, you're going to have to come back on when it breaks, and we're
Yes.
going to talk about it and make sure everybody takes a look at it. That's awesome.
I love that.
Congratulations. Oh my
Thank you.
God.
Thank
And
you.
we have to just go back to the stand-up comedy thing, because I did not know this about you until we were in New York in January, and you invited us to come see you actually, stand up.
Yes.
And we ended up seeing Jim Gaffick in there,
Yeah.
which was like crazy. So I don't know, just these are all the many faces of Karen Stone, right?
You
Like,
just never know what I'm going to do. And I just actually wrapped up an improv class, and I'm performing this weekend for the first time. And between the improv class and the TED Talk, my brain is like so stretched because it's thinking so much all at the same time. But it's something that I will definitely say, for any realtors out there, any business owners that are watching this, like, there is something so magical that comes out of doing something so scary that is stand-up comedy, even if you're not funny. And I'm grateful that Gaffigan was there that night, because at least I know that you got some laughs in. They might have been at me, but but at least he was really funny. I laughed, so I appreciated it. But there's a level of courage that comes with doing something like that. And when you can do that, like, you can really conquer anything.
you can do anything. For some people, they need to climb Kilimanjaro. For you, you just need to step on stage.
Yeah, no. I'll jump out of an airplane over Kilimanjaro and
Right.
yeah.
That is awesome. So Karen, as we start to wrap up here, what are 3 things that you think would be important for our community to take away
Ugh.
as it relates to transitions?
As it relates to transitions, be open. If any door is open for you, walk through the door. Remember that there are 3 things, and hopefully this will make it to my TED Talk. There are 3 questions to ask yourself when faced with any big decision. What's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And what's most likely to happen? That is how I ended up in Park City. I was literally like, well, the worst thing is I have a home in Park City, worst case scenario is I move back to New York. And I think, seek out help, advice, put your ego aside, and let people guide you. Even when you don't realize that you need the guidance.
That is so beautiful. Oh my God. So it's so funny you say that, because I was having a walk with a friend this morning. And yesterday I had a call with Deborah Trapin, and in both conversations, we were talking about how, I don't know if it's our generation or us as women or what it is, but we have a really hard time asking for help. Like, we feel like we have to do it all ourselves. We need to be self-sufficient, independent, not depend on anybody. And it's no fun when you do it all yourself. And B, you get burned out. And, why not? People want to help. That's all part of give and take and friendship. And, there's the give in the receiving, So I love that. Like, it's so important to reach out when you need help and advocate for yourself. I love that.
Yes. One of my favorites.
Yes.
But it's a gender role, right? It's a gender role. I think that we all at a very young age. And thankfully, again, with awareness, I learned all this in college. So I'm more aware of it.
That's so good. Okay. Finish this sentence. Know, like, trust is.
Ooh. Know, like, trust is essential.
Nice. Sure is.
For any kind of relationship, whether it's in business or personal.
Yep. Absolutely. Where can people find you?
Instagram at the Karen Stone. YouTube, I'm at Live, Eat, Play, Park City. And I am very, very, very Googleable.
I will also say that Karen is the host of American Dream Home?
American Dream TV.
American Dream TV.
Yep.
I've watched a couple of your episodes, which are so fun to watch. Love them.
You.
So for everybody who's listening today, make sure you're following Karen. She's absolutely amazing and she travels to all the conferences. So if you're a realtor, make sure you come to Inman. Where else are you going to be this year?
Oh, you just never know. I never know, right? I might like, oh, I'm casually somewhere. No, I'll be in Inman in Vegas. I'm usually at the Tom Ferry conferences, some of the bigger conferences, women's events, so Women Up. And I'm trying to add one more that's not real estate related.
Awesome.
Like a Neil Patel, I think, is hosting something, and I'm trying to figure out if I can get there.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. Or Chris
That-
Voss, he's hosting something.
He's
too.
also very
Yeah.
good. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, make sure you're following her. Karen is amazing. She is your resource in Park City, Utah. We will definitely put the links to your IG and your YouTube in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and can't wait to see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone. Ciao.